What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and this is a brand new series talking about all the things I've done so far to my 10th generation Honda Civic Si. This is my 2019 Honda Civic Si I bought back in March of 2021, and as you guys can see, I've done quite a bit of work to it so far. This is now my track car, and obviously I have a lot more to do still because we're going pretty much all out with this build, but I figured why not start a series pretty much going over everything I've done, why I bought the parts I did, and what I plan to do next. We're going to be hopping into the first install on this channel, which was well over a year ago, and this was the Godspeed rear camber arms install. I installed these camber arms in January of 2022 because when I installed my D2 lowering springs way before that, I ended up getting some rear negative camber that ate through my tires pretty quickly. So I went ahead and bought a pair of these for I believe $170, and I gotta say, they have been absolutely fantastic for me. No regrets here. Next, we got the Kyostar toe straps. I did these on the front and the back, and that's because usually in some events they require front and rear toe straps. If you don't have them, you can't go on the track. I have not been to one of these events yet, but still good to have, especially being that I track this car now. God forbid something happens, which I never hope it does, I have toe straps. They are there just in case I need them, and well, they look kind of good, let's be honest. Next, I went ahead and cut out the vents in the rear bumper. I did this to reduce the parachuting effect that the rear bumper inevitably has, simply just to reduce some drag. In the future, I'm probably either going to, one, cut the bumper more or remove it entirely when I start getting serious in the tracking. But for now, a cool little modification that I did, and it looks kind of good too. I went ahead and ordered these $30 mirror caps off of eBay. These simply reroute some of the air over the window. That way when I have them down for track days, it's not so invasive. They don't really have a major effect on the Aero as far as I'm concerned. It's just to keep some of the wind out when the windows are down. This was the first stage of weight reduction. I went ahead and removed the rear seat and I gutted the trunk. You guys will see later on in the video that I ended up doing more weight reduction, but this is where I started. This is where it started to get a little sketchy for me. Cutting into my car at first was definitely an uneasy feeling, but once I did it, I got over it. These are called track life cutouts, and what they do is reduce some of the dirty air, or you could say drag, in the wheel wells, as well as help some of the heat from the brakes escape. Most, if not all, of the high-end time attack cars have these cutouts. Usually they're a lot nicer though. However, a lot of people who do time attack or any kind of grid life or anything like that do have these cutouts. They are very helpful when it comes to releasing heat and releasing drag. I then took a wonderful road trip up to Georgia to go visit NineLivesRacing so they can make me one of their amazing wings for my car. They actually did not have a kit for the 10th gen sedan yet, so I took the liberty of being the first one, drove 6 hours, and got my very own wing made for me. I waited about 4 months for this wing, being that they never made one for this car yet, so you guys will see later on in the video the install once I got it. The first performance mod for this car was the AEM short ram intake. I will admit there are way better intakes out there for this car, but I got it with a bundle with the Ktuner for only $200. That you really can't beat. Speaking of tuner, I had to buy a laptop so I can actually upload a tune. So I went to Walmart, picked up this laptop for a little over $200, and it's been my go-to ever since. Finally, I uploaded the first tune to the car. This was the 23 PSI basemap from Ktuner. They give it to you automatically. It comes with the unit. This gave me around average 34 wheel horsepower and about 40 wheel torque. You definitely feel it. These cars are pretty punchy from the factory, but with that tune, it definitely punched you a little more. Wasn't nothing to go crazy about exactly, even though I had a really good time in it.
And go. Oh yeah, it's faster!
But it definitely was a noticeable difference, and for the first tune, I really enjoyed it. With the tune, I really wanted to have gauges. Since I didn't get the V2 Ktuner, I did not get the screen that comes with it, so I found a better alternative. I went to Walmart, again, because I'm sponsored by Walmart, and picked up a cheap smartphone for $60 just to simply run my gauges. It worked out perfectly, and I saved a lot of money over the Ktuner V2. Here, I went ahead and did the Home Depot special. I bought one of their AC vents for like $12 and decided to cut into my hood. You know, this one I sort of regret. I mean, it does something, and since this video, I opened it up a lot more, so there's not really much restriction. But let's be honest here, an AC vent in a hood, not really a good look. I went ahead and did another Home Depot special, except for this time it was actually a somewhat quality install. I picked up some plastic tubing and went ahead and routed these into my wheel wells, that way I can have some sort of brake cooling. I completely removed the fog lights, and these perfectly lined up with the fog light holes. That way some of the air goes through the bumper into the wheel well and cools the brakes down a little bit, and some of the air can also escape the fender cuts I did. Perfect Aero, look at that. Something I really wish I would have done a long time ago was pick up an aftermarket intercooler. At last, I finally picked up this one from G Plus on Amazon, I believe. This one was only $215, which a lot of people would probably look at me and say it's crap. But honestly, the temps work just as good as intercoolers that cost 3 times the price. So in reality, I got a steal. This completely changed the game for me as far as consistency and pulls. The stock intercooler was beat up and honestly garbage anyway from the factory. This really helped the heat soak issue that all the 10th gens have. For a track boat especially, this was a huge win. To get some more cooling, I went ahead and ordered the American Modified Open Grill. This just lets a little more air into the engine bay and cools off the engine a little more. I never actually paid attention to any temperature differences, if there was any, but it definitely does something, and it also looks a lot better than the stock grill. The last real cooling mod I did was add some DEI heat wrap, or heat tape, you can call it. I went ahead and wrapped the turbo inlet, the intake itself, some of the coolant lines, as well as the actual intake box. Finally, a front splitter. This one's really not that big. It's actually made for a different model Civic, but I got it for 150 bucks, so I figured, hey, why not? Throw it on there, even chassis mounted it, and for now, it does the job. In the future, for sure, we'll be upgrading to a bigger front splitter, but for now, this is what we got, and we're rocking it pretty good. For the rotors, I went with the R1 Concept slotted rotors. They are fantastic and have done a great job managing heat for me. Finally, the time has come for aftermarket wheels. The stock wheels on this car weighed around 29 pounds. These add-ons, 19. I shaved 10 pounds of weight on each wheel, just 40 pounds of sitting weight in total. Not to mention, that's rotational mass. I definitely felt an acceleration, braking, and cornering difference with these wheels. It is a massive difference, and honestly, if you're going to be tracking a car, lightweight wheels should be one of the first things you do. Well, the 4 months are up, and the wing is here. This is the NineLivesRacing 71-inch wing that they made for me. This wing is extremely efficient. It offers a 15-to-1 downforce to drag ratio. With the upgraded power, it was time to upgrade the brakes. I went with EBC Yellow Stuff brake pads in the front, and these things bite hard. These pads specifically are a hybrid pad between street and track, and since I do drive this car on the street and the track, they do their job perfectly. They have enough front end bite to lock up all of the wheels. It's really impressive. With the new brake pads in, I went ahead and did the brake fluid as well. I went with Motul RBF 600 brake fluid, which is a really good brake fluid that a lot of racers use. The boiling point of this fluid is over 600 degrees, which means it can take some abuse. And so far, I haven't had any issues with it yet. With all of these mods, I finally touched the exhaust with a muffler delete. Yes, I know it doesn't sound like much, but it actually woke the car up a pretty good amount. A lot of pressure was released, and not only did the car feel a little faster, it also sounded a lot better as well. Eventually, I will be either doing a hood dump or a fender exit exhaust to 1, save weight, 2, it'll look a lot nicer, and 3, will definitely help the performance as well. For now though, I'll happily rock my HDMI exhaust as I really enjoy how it looks. Alright, time to upgrade the tires. I went with a beginner track tire, the Falcon Azeni RT 615K Plus. I did keep the OEM tire size, which did result in kind of a stretch tire setup. Personally, I'm not a fan of stretch tires, and since this is a track car, I really shouldn't have stretch tires. I don't know what I was thinking here, to be honest, but this is what I got. The grip difference was massive. These tires grip a lot better than the all seasons. For sure won't be going back to all seasons unless I have to. These tires are phenomenal. It was finally time for our first track day. This is at the Firm here in Starkey, Florida. It's a 1.6 mile road course and consists of 10 turns as well as S's. This is a very technical track and it demands brakes. For my first time out, I didn't do too bad. I was definitely kind of a sissy though, and I let off way before the braking zones, but I was getting there. I had a blast and the car proved itself more than enough to me. I knew she was a machine, but there was still more work to do. I didn't have an upgraded rear sway bar at the time, so my rear end was kind of sloppy. And since I'm only on springs currently, there was a lot of body roll. Either way, the track day was a massive success, and I knew that next time that I went out here, she was going to be even more capable. Track day complete, time for more power. Now we're stepping up from the Ktuner bass map to a very aggressive Phearable 1.5R tune. This tune is by John Vega. While this tune does offer 26 PSI, you don't actually hit it most of the time. I've actually never hit it once. I usually hit 24 to 25. They do say that 26 is only in perfect parameters, which I've never had those yet. Regardless though, this tune is a lot more aggressive than the old tune. It has a lot more punch to it, and you also have the ability to no lift shift, which is a huge deal. On a bone stock 10th gen SI, this tune gave 49 horsepower and 102 pound-feet of torque. On a bone stock SI, that is massive. Very impressive numbers from just a tune, and you definitely can feel it. Speaking of shifting, it was time for a proper short shifter. Before I just had a Boomba Racing short shifter lever. This time, it was time for the whole assembly. I went with Acuity Instruments, and honestly, I have no complaints. This shifter feels so good. It is so stiff and so notchy and so direct, it feels like a proper race car now. Side skirts were something I also should have done a long time ago. These really tie up the side profile with the car and make all of the aero kind of work. I went with Aeroflow Dynamics for these, and for a little over $200, the quality you get is well worth it. These are metal, not plastic, and the paint finish on them is super nice. Time to go ahead and fix up the rear end slop. I went with the Whiteline 22mm rear sway bar, but a massive difference was felt right off the bat. Instead of the rear end kind of dancing out in a corner, it followed through. It felt like there was a giant rock in the rear holding it down. The car felt much more capable in the corners, and trust me, on track, I definitely felt the difference. Time for a second track day. This time, I'm fully committing to the turns. I didn't let off until I had to this time, and I really pushed the car. The last time, I was running around a 130.5. This time, I set a PB of 124.162. As you guys can see, I wasn't holding back, and this car was a lot more capable than what I was doing the first time. Here, she really shined. The rear sway bar definitely made a huge difference, as well as the fact that I wasn't as scared to drive the car hard. Right off the bat, I noticed that my stock SI seats were not doing the job anymore. I definitely could have had a faster time if I wasn't fighting to stay in my seat, and as you guys can see from my poor hand placement, I was trying to hold myself still. The other thing I noticed were that these tires were not doing it for me anymore. I was driving too hard and the car is too fast for these tires. So in the future, I will be upgrading to the Bridgestone Potenza RE71 RSs. To partly tackle the seat issue, I went ahead and bought a Type R seat and swapped it over. The Type R seat is lovely, I absolutely adore it. However, it's still a little soft for what I need, so eventually I will be going to an actual proper bucket seat. The rear motor mount was something I neglected for a long time. What I didn't realize is that the previous owner of the car actually swapped in the Type R mount, but for sure it needed upgrading. So I went all out with the 27-1 90A race motor mount. This is the stiffest one they offer, and let me tell you something, you feel it. Everything rattles, but well worth it as the driving experience is way better. Well, time to gut the car more. Sometimes you just get bored of looking at interior pieces. What if I don't want to see interior? What if I want to see bare metal and wires? Well, that's what I did. As you guys can see, I started ripping apart a lot more than just the rear seats in the trunk. Ultimately, I would say I probably shaved around 100 pounds of just interior weight. And yes, you do feel the difference. Eventually, I will be adding a roll cage, and of course, there will be more weight reduction like the airbags taken out, but for now, this is where I got. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've had a lot of fun modding this car so far, and of course, there's a lot more to come. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down below. As always, I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope to see y'all in the next video.